Welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally. If you missed our last episode with Kibby Linga about being creative and expressing your feelings through art, please go back and check it out. Our guest today is an elementary educator, author of Brain Awakes, Empowering Children Through Breath, Balance, and Reflection. He's a podcaster, and we love this, an encourager. Please welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally, Joseph Hamer with Cup of Joe.
Hey! Thank you. It's your title of your show is so fitting and authentic. Just being on here, you're certainly full of pep here in the evening hours. So I appreciate everything that you're doing as well. Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying, and I think this is the time that we all need to be doing that anyways. I want to make a note. Oh, Pete's got his Cup of Joe tonight with our guest.
My cup of pep.
I love that. You never know what's in
That's
Pete's
a new t-shirt.
Yeah. You've got your party t-shirt on, your Star Wars shirt on.
I do.
That's good. Well, I'm going to make mention that our good friend Letitia's not here. She wishes she could be. She'll definitely be here in spirit because she has been singing Joseph's praises for a while now. Yes. So we are so happy to have you on here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks. And thanks again for having me here. And Letitia and I have been talking. We just chatted a few days ago and same type of person. I mean, she wasn't feeling well when I was talking to her, but she was still, it was kind of funny, actually. She said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be bringing the energy. But then the whole conversation, I felt like she was bringing the energy. So I don't know what she's like, I guess, on a normal day, but I can only imagine. But anyways, I guess, so I teach a second and third grade combination classroom in Wichita, Kansas. I'm a fairly young teacher. I've only been teaching, this is my 5th year. But so coming into Wichita Public Schools, I got a job starting in January at a school district. And so I took on a class that had a long-term sub, and just, immediately fell in love and have enjoyed trying to fit some of the different puzzle pieces together in this profession. And Brain Awakes, or the activities that make up Brain Awakes, is certainly just something that helped me find the pieces a little bit easier in terms of the classroom. And so basically in quarantine this last March, I reached out to Haley Peter again, who we graduated from Emporia State together. And I knew she had moved out to California to do more of the yoga and part-time teaching there. I reached out to her and just said, hey, I have, I think, months of this and not a lot going on. And she kind of reverberated that back to me. And we were able to sit down and put our ideas together every week and come up with this practical, amazing resource, Brain Awakes, that hopefully will empower children everywhere.
Yeah, I like that. And when I was looking at the book, there's this kind of umbrella term of generation mindfulness associated with the ideas and the activities in the book. Can you tell us kind of how you see students and kids empowered to regulate and recognize their emotions through kind of this mindfulness?
Yeah. So first of all, when I got started with this, I had started my own journey of meditation pretty shortly after I started teaching. And right about that same time, my principal in my building passed out mindfulness cards to us, just as little activities we could do during the day. So in alignment of both of those things happening, I decided to try and implement it in a daily routine. Long story short, it made a huge impact in not only my kids' inner emotions, but also the way they connected with one another. I've been using the word humanize a lot, and I felt like it sitting there in silence and not a fast-paced math lesson, not going from one activity to the next, just sitting there and being together really brought our class together. And so I started doing these activities year after year, and it made the same exact impact on us. So the first thing out of that is it showed me that children can be empowered to do this. It's not something we say they should be able to do this. It also showed me that the reason my kids weren't doing it before was because I wasn't explicitly teaching it to them every day. There would be an event that would happen, and I would say, well, why weren't you, like, why didn't we handle this better? But we can't expect our kids to be okay without teaching them how to be okay. So that's kind of the biggest push for us to get this going.
If I could ask, like, what did that look like initially? Then you talked about not being in that rhythm of a habit yet. What was the setup like? What was the gathering looking like?
Yeah, so great question. To start out, first of all, so I've always had flexible seating. And so my first year, I actually just saw, Facebook does those pop-ups like, look at this from 5 years ago. And I looked at my first classroom. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Like, oh man, I really tried to overdo it, I guess. So my first year, there was a lot of learning involved, especially the class I took on was just kind of, that class in particular was already known for its behaviors. And so I wanted to come in and just rock the world and change everything. And so I guess, to be honest, beforehand, it felt a little bit like I was trying to tug on ropes from everyone. Like it wasn't unified in the sense of, when things would happen, I felt like I was working with this kid, but it was isolated. I was working over here and it was isolated. And it never made the impact I needed because I wasn't reaching every kid in not even the same way, but just the same amount of time. If I'm working with the one kid that needs that help, yeah, he's going to start to grow, but every kid in my classroom needs that social emotional growth. So I guess for me, it felt like it finally was synchronous in the sense of all of my kids had a similar understanding of their emotions or their social behavior. And so rather than it feeling like, I don't know, tugging, trying to catch and chase after all of these different things, we were able to have whole group discussions and be more open and honest and genuine with each other in that sense.
Wow, that's impressive. That's an impressive accomplishment.
It sounds a little bit like, ironically, as you were trying to kind of be in a lot of places and trying different things, really trying to reach all the kids, but end up individually, this, and correct me if I'm wrong, the slowing down and being mindful is actually what made that doable.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to do, is slowing down in my personal life even, but in the classroom, I mean, we know how many standards we have to hit. We know how jam-packed our days are and how we have 47 minutes for this. And you looked up and 13 minutes is gone. And we know the stress of that part of our profession. And for me, Brain Awakes or the mindfulness activities, I use other things as well. There's yoga pretzel cards that are amazing and mindful kids cards that are amazing and all sorts of videos. And so I try to build them in through my day, not only for my kids, but also for me to remember to bring me back to the present moment just as much as them. And it really does. It humanizes things. It reminds myself that I can feel like, oh, I've been feeling anxious, or I hear somebody acting out, or the discussion afterwards, I hear them talk about something that I thought, well, maybe we won't do it today because, we came in late from recess and we need to do this. And I decided to go ahead and do the activity. And then I hear the kids talk about it afterwards. And I think, oh, yeah, why would I ever skip this? It's just being willing to slow down, to connect about something that is a part of all of us. Yeah.
There's so much I love about that. And you know what? It's really, I don't know if it's serendipitous or ironic right now, but so the class that I just came, out of to be here with you tonight, it's a crime and terrorism course. And I begin the course by discussing the process of critical thinking. And in the process that I laid out this evening with my students was the fact of being aware and mindful of yourself, because that's part of the objective nature or the unbiased approach. And when I look at my students and their age, and we've talked about this before, they're coming to me already baked. And to get into meditation or get into this mindful state at an older age gets to be challenging, right? And what you're doing, I think, is an incredible service to them. They probably won't realize it yet as younger people, but you're planting the seeds and laying a foundation that will be so helpful for them when they get to these upper divisions where we really do need to be having them think critically, connecting thoughts and doing it, but you can't just do that. It's not a rote memorization exercise. It's something that has to come out of you. And I applaud you for doing that. That's fantastic. Wow.
Thank you. And I think that's a lot of teaching, right? I mean, you don't often see, you don't reap what you've sown. And so there have been a couple instances, especially with these activities. Man, I had this third grade boy, and he was one that I had to work on the most, I think, out of any of my kids. And I don't know, we came up with this silly thing to get him out of his negative thoughts that we were talking about watering seeds. In fact, one of the activities in Brain Awakes is called Watering Your Garden. And it has kids pretending that they're pouring a bucket of water over their head. And it comes from this kid. I used to just remind him, you have so many seeds, and right now you're watering your negative seeds. You're angry. You're thinking about this. And I'm not going to tell you not to do that, because you have those feelings and you can water those. But I want you to notice how you're feeling. And then later, when I see you being happy, I'm going to ask you to notice that then too. So then eventually I just started calling them happy plants. And so I'd go up to this kid and I would pretend that I'm pouring water on his head. And I would just say, I'm watering your happy plants for you. And then, I'm not kidding, instantly this kid would turn around and smile. And so a few years later, he caught me in the hallway and just said, my whole class needs to sit down and do Mr. Hamer breaths. Like we need this. Everybody's being mean to each other right now. And so that was kind of the first moment for me that is a reminder that what I'm doing is not just ending at the end of this year. The curriculum, that's done, you move on. But that social emotional learning aspect, it really is a lifelong skill that's not done and over with once you're done with it that year. And so it was a big motivator for me too, it's good to see kind of that end of things that we don't always get to see.
Joseph, go ahead, Fred.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, Joseph, I'm at an elementary school. I'm a music teacher at elementary school. And I'm thinking, how hard would it be for me to move to Kansas? Because I think you and I would click. This is like, I'm getting goosebumps with some of the stuff you're saying. And you've mentioned challenging kids, challenging classes. I already know the answer to this, but don't you just love those groups? Sometimes those are the ones that they teach me. I grow as a person. I grow as an educator. When I have those challenging groups, I look forward to those. I'm going to win these kids over. We're going to turn over something, whatever issues going on, we're going to grow. I love what you're sharing. This is great. This is excellent.
Yeah, I think absolutely, for sure. In fact, it gets kind of dangerous for me in the terms of like a savior complex of, I feel that I can do this and I have to be the one. So when it's not happening, I get caught up in myself. And I was talking to Dr. Basil Marin, and after the show, after my episode with him, we were just sharing a little bit more. And I was sharing with him about, one boy that got expelled out of my classroom, and just, I felt like maybe I could have done more. And he was also reminding me, you planted those seeds, and you can't have the savior complex to the point where you're beating yourself up. Like,
right.
You've planted those seeds and you've got to move on. And so in my classrooms now, I think it's kind of a fresh lens. You have to feel confident in what you're laying, what you're planting, what you're watering, and know that whether or not you see it grow, you believe in it. So those difficult classrooms, the difficult kids that come in, they're the ones who need you the most, but they also absolutely take the most out of you. But years later, they're the ones that you think about. I mean, I have kids, I still think, man, I wonder if I can find their teacher and just reach out to that kid. And, no offense to all the good kids out there, but I really don't think I laugh, but it's the kids that make you really stay up and think and work hard for them that really hang on your heart.
You are making a difference in their lives. And then the three of us have talked about this. Those kids will come back. You will hear about them. They will remember you. You'll hear a deep voice in the hallway one day and turn around and see this person grown up. And it's really, really cool. Would you mind sharing with us? My district's all virtual this week. We go day by day. We have no idea. What would you, maybe introducing this to a class, what little nugget can you share with us? What little activity, if we're in an online situation tomorrow, what would you introduce to a teacher? Say, hey, try this with your class. Is there something that you could throw out to our listeners?
Yeah, first of all, in my time teaching remote, and we're yo-yoed a little bit, not quite as bad as it sounds like you are, um, but there is a whole different pressure. I mean, you kind of feel like your parents are watching you, even though oftentimes they're, off doing anything else. But I don't know. I think there was some nerves for me because I do a lot of social emotional learning. I spend a lot of time uh, building up kids and talking and getting the most out of the curriculum that way. So I felt nervous a little bit switching over to the house of maybe some parents questioning. Um, but for one, I didn't end up having that. In fact, I had some emails just saying thank you for taking the time to do those things. But two, I decided to really take the time, and even though we were remote, instead of just giving them a brain break, still walking them through these different activities. And it was powerful. In fact, some of the kids in the classroom that feel maybe a little more self-conscious, they don't close their eyes in the classroom, or you can see that they're a little more squirrely just because they can feel the energy off the other people. When they were at home, it was totally different, especially if they were alone in the room. Um, so I would just say, for one, start the practice and try to build it in. So I do specifically brain awakes every day after lunch recess as a way to calm down from all of the quarrels at recess
Right.
and kind of get ready for that day. But I would say just start, and to model with kind of your own actions. You can't say we're going to do mindfulness and then 3 minutes into your lesson after that be like, you really gotta kind of walk the walk and that you're talking. And so I guess as far as specific strategies though, I would start small. And a lot of kids have never just sat and noticed their breath. And that's one powerful thing to start with, because one, you always have your breath. It's something that's always with you. And it's a huge uh, signal of how you're feeling. Your quick pace breath often tells you have an intense emotion going on. A slow breath often indicates, you're feeling peaceful or calm. And so that alone can be a huge emotional gauge for students. But just giving kids, 30 seconds, not a minute, not 15 minutes of silent breathing, but just 30 seconds of saying, we're going to sit here. I want you to breathe in and out through your nose. And every time you breathe in, I want you to think the word in. Every time you breathe out, I want you to think the word out. And I'll let you know when 30 seconds is up. And then about 15 seconds in, saying, if you forgot to say in and out, be thinking in, out. And just 30 seconds to get the kids started. And then asking them, how was your breath? Was it fast or was it slow? Was it deep or was it short? Okay, why do you think that? And right away, I promise the kids will already be able to answer without having to really think, oh, I've never thought about, because they can quickly tie that their breath is with their emotion. Oh, well, I'm feeling happy, or I'm excited about science coming up, so I felt like maybe this. And it's more about just helping kids recognize that breath is always there. And then from there, moving forward, you can get as deep as mantras. I do mantras with my kids every so often, and as light as just sitting and listening and seeing. Try to note everything that you can hear over the next 1 minute. And that's really interesting when you're remote teaching too, because all the kids hear different things. Not everybody in the classroom hears the clock, hears the footsteps, and hears the car horn.
Oh, yeah,
The same
yeah.
thing. Every kid hears something different because they're all somewhere different. And so that one's always interesting and kind of pulling on that.
When that happens, do you guide them along to allow that to come in, let them observe it, and kind of like let it move away from them? Or is there a different practice for that?
Yeah. And I think I try to balance it. I don't mind more frequent talking through some meditations that I've done, but I know like some that I've done with my wife, she gets really bothered when somebody talks a lot through it. And so I try to be mindful that not everybody is like me. And so I just try to do here and there, like, if if you got caught up and you heard the TV kick on and now you're thinking about that, remember to just let it go, breathe and listen. And so I try not to do too much, and it is a lot easier in person too. I mean, you can feel the energy start to rise, or the shuffling start to happen, and it's easier that way. But in remote, I would say just every so often coming on and reminding, and again that kind of peaceful time, that peaceful tone that you come in with can be a big impact too, because some kids, silence is almost a trauma trigger. Kids with trauma, they can sit there and be flooded back with everything they hate about the silence. And so you don't want that to happen. You don't want a kid to be forced to sit and listen to trauma that's happening with them. And so sometimes just that reassuring voice of, we're all sitting here, we're all doing this, everybody's here is kind of enough.
Oh, nice.
I think that's some good tips too, for our educator friends out there, just with the extra stress lately that's been put on us. When you mentioned the breathing part, even though I know breath is so important, I've found myself this week, and even my lovely significant other has noticed, I have stopped breathing at times. I'm literally holding my breath, and I'm starting to realize when I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. Of course, it's related to something all of a sudden made me anxious, or I'm lost in a thought that's causing extra stress. But it's so great that you're reminding the students of doing that. And I think maybe even for yourself, you're giving yourself the same opportunity at that time to do it too, right?
Yes, it is as big of an impact on me. And just to paint a picture, today I walked home, I opened the door and I stepped in shit, like literally my first step in the door. And then I looked at the carpet and there was puke on our white rug. And I can promise you that if I had not been doing these practices with my kids all week, it probably would have gone a little different. I chose to just not talk to my cat instead of, I don't know. Anyways, but you get the picture. It certainly, like, I really did. I stopped and I'm thinking, and I think, what would I tell my kids right now? This is an intense emotion. I am not happy. And so it was a moment where I'm just like, okay, things could be worse. I feel upset, and I have the right to feel upset. I don't like poop on my shoe. But, and then you can just kind of, I don't know, laugh about it and move on and know that I do need to take some time to calm down. I can't also just bury that and act, this was great. This is just the best. Let me go grab some paper towels, and so I think it's just also kind of what you were saying is acknowledging that, and then giving myself grace, knowing that those feelings are natural. I never tell my kids not to be angry at somebody, not to be, upset or furious or anxious. Those are feelings that you can have. It's whether or not you want to hold on to those feelings. And so, yeah, it was a moment where I could remind myself, and it's exactly because I do it every day with my kids. Otherwise, I'm sure that shoe would have, never mind.
So Joe,
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to ask Joe. Then, so I might not have been too clear in my understanding. How did you come about beginning meditation?
Thanks for asking. Yeah. So, 2016, before that, I don't know, 2015, 2016, I started reading some text on Buddhism and that sort of thing from one of my friends who had a book and passed it on to me. And I found kind of the lifestyle of that quite interesting in terms of similarities and differences in the religions that I already kind of knew, and kind of just the pace of life, or the I don't know, the way that you interact with the world around you and how you're kind of a part of that. And I thought like meditation would be like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and be so enlightened, and I'm gonna sit here for 30 minutes and just I don't know. I thought it was kind of a chum thing to do, I guess, at first. Like, I don't really care to do this. And so after kind of hearing more about the practice and kind of being led on to some new resources, I decided to give it a shot. And I noticed the biggest impact it made on me was my temper. Like in the classroom, I noticed when that kid was doing the same thing over and over again, I had more patience, and I found myself coming back to myself. I found myself watching my breath. I found myself closing my eyes for a second and taking a couple deep breaths and choosing to let that kid know that I needed a minute and that I would talk with him, in just a little bit, that I wasn't quite ready to talk. And so after being kind of, I don't know, deciding to, what the heck, I'll give it a shot, seeing its true impacts on my daily life. And I don't know, I guess at that time too, my now wife and we moved in together and we were living together. And so I also noticed times that I was being unfair to her in the sense of, little things that happen, this or that. I noticed, why was I getting so upset over something so small as well? And so that meditation really did help me center myself and notice those emotions in myself. And so I thought, why wouldn't I teach this to my kids? I mean, yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like you are realizing, we all have energy, we all give off energy. It's just a matter of being intentional about where you want to direct that energy. Like the example you gave of walking in and stepping in some poop. There's some energy there, right? That's going to come off of you. And so you're finding ways to validate your feelings, but then also maybe regroup how that energy is going to be set out. And I bring this up because a recent episode, and I wrote this down, that you did on your podcast, Cup of Joe, was positivity is possible. And I feel like that word intention kept coming up. It's a word Letitia keeps bringing up to us. Fred's really adopted and notices, this idea of being intentional. So I'm curious, what's some big things that you learned from your conversation with Taylor Armstrong about ways to focus on staying positive and just being intentionally positive?
Yeah, I would love to share actually a huge change for me. In fact, I already told you right before the show. So my talk with Taylor, just talking about being more intentional about being positive, focusing on your inner circle and choosing to spread positivity and not be afraid of, I guess, shining. Like, so many teachers right now, they're in a dark place. So many teachers right now are having a hard time opening their screens. They're not enjoying every day like they used to. And so for me, I've had one heck of a year in a good sense. I had this book, I started the podcast, and I really am in a kind of a growth spurt and connecting with a lot of people. So I, for one, I've been blessed to be in this amazing place, but I found myself holding that back a lot in person. I love to connect on Twitter, my podcast, all of this. But when I went to my classroom, I love to make people laugh. I'm not saying I was hunkering over, but I certainly wasn't sharing the good things that were happening to me as much because I knew so many people were suffering. And I guess that was the reason I reached out to Taylor to bring him on the show. Was I know he's big. In fact, the thing that caught me was, on his Twitter banner, it says, "Pardon my positivity." So I wanted to bring him on and talk to him about that, because I think, it's a realization that when you are positive, it really does, it's contagious with what's around you. So the next morning after I recorded that episode with Taylor, I was driving to work and listening to the Goop podcast, and Pharrell Williams was on there and talking about being more intentional. And the thing that actually sparked this recent change in me was just a little side piece, like a little side conversation they had. Like, we never have small talk. Every time you and I get together, we always get so deep into our conversation. We have big life conversations. Like, small talk is a waste of time for us. And I don't know what clicked in my head, but I realized, like, when we pass each other in the hallway, teachers, we say, hey, how are you? Good. Like that's, oh, beautiful day, isn't it? Like that's today's small talk. We can't count that as checking in on someone, because every time we say good, I'm okay, whatever it is, like it's not it's not intentional, because it is like fluid, right? Now it's different from walking in, knocking on a door and asking someone. But so something I decided was, in combination of those two thoughts, instead of asking people in passing, how are you? Oh, good. I've been saying, what's going well for you? And so I've done that this week. And it is so amazing how many people stop. They stop walking. Like I keep walking. Hey, how are you? I'm great. What's going well for you? They stop, they turn around to share. And other people are just caught off guard. And for me, it's been so cool, because one, you hear good things that are happening. Two, it reminds those people that good things are happening. And other people are like, let me, like they really have to think about it. But at that same time, that means they were in a dark place. They feel like nothing's going well. And you're making them think, what's one thing that's going well for me? And so I haven't even reached out and told Taylor this. So Taylor, if you're hearing this first, thank you. But yeah, I think that's one thing, that when it comes to being intentional about positivity, that's one small change. That's a change in a question. It's not going to find more people. It's just when you see somebody asking a different question, that's sparks positivity. And so I think that's kind of what it's all about, is finding little ways to bring your own brightness, and then also kind of find ways to make that be contagious.
And I love the fact though too, it's also not about you, right? It puts that interest into them. And that's what I think wakens, that's that moment where they do turn and stop and respond. And that's what it's supposed to be about, right? That's such a wonderful thing to hear. And that's right now, that's hard to do, because we're not in that, we don't have the water cooler experience. We're not passing each other in the hallway or going up and down the stairs, and that's something I think we've all been admitting. I think we've all said on here since we began this, that we don't have that. I don't know what the word is. Serendipitous or whatever. I don't know. It's, you're not bumping into each other, but if we can embrace that now and take it forward, it'd be very helpful for us once we get back to that physical space. We start practicing it now.
I love it so much. I almost want us to model it. Would you guys be game for that real quick? Just to kind of, because I'd like to hear what the three of you would say, but I also think it might be kind of a neat exercise for our listeners to kind of hear how that goes. Are you guys down for that?
For sure. Well, I guess you could start. What's going well for you?
Oh, great. Glad you asked. What's going well for me is, so a lot of my family, Joseph, lives outside of the state that I live in. And my family's very, very close. So this has definitely been difficult in trying to find ways to not just stay connected, because you can do that by picking up the phone and stuff, but feeling like you're still creating memories that we'll kind of go back on. And so I'll have to say lately what's been going well is feeling really connected to my family. And I've had some hard times with that during the pandemic. And we've just found some really sweet ways to create memories. We've done 2 now Zoom bake-offs where we pick the same recipe and we all do them. And so there's different ages. I have young nieces and nephews, and then my mom, who's, the matriarch. And so it's kind of neat to kind of see us all baking and teaching each other, about measuring out certain dry ingredients versus the wet ingredients. And so that's just been really kind of sweet. And then I've got some nieces and nephews across the state that are needing some tutoring help because they are in remote learning. And so I'm able to kind of get in there and share my passion for reading and writing and help them to grow in their learning. So I would say my connection with my family has been going really well. Thanks for asking.
Now, first of all, I just want, I guess, people listening to imagine that happening in passing, right? Like if I would have just passed you in the hall and said, how are you? You would have probably said good or great, and we would have kept walking. But like you get a chance to share right there what's making you and I'm smiling, right? Like I'm happy to hear this. And so it really has been a huge impact this week, and I'm excited to keep testing it out. And yeah. All right, Fred.
Well, what's going well for me? It's funny, when I thought about you asking that question the first time, I found myself falling down that path of just this rote answer. And I'm building a puzzle right now. That's a lot of fun. I pulled a 3-dimensional puzzle out of our closet that was still in plastic wrap, and I'm really enjoying building it.
Sweet.
It's the St. Peter's Cathedral. So it's going to be this 3-dimensional model, but I'm enjoying doing that. But I think also is the fact that I'm comfortable with my schedule. I don't think it's anything as a comment on this remote world. I'm just in a really pleasant groove right now where I'm feeling comfortable with the offerings in my courses, how it's structured, and being back with my students. That's probably the big thing, because we just started classes this week. So that's what's going well for me right now. But it feels it's a nice feeling right now.
Good. It's good to hear. All right. What's going well for you?
I'm going to start working on this more, because I don't ask myself this. I ask others this. And this is important. Digging deep, I would say the first thing that bubbles up to the surface is this week I've had kids in our online classes and in chorus practice and in the show practice that we're doing, all online, all virtual. When our time is up, the kids have asked, can we go longer? Oh, does it have to end? I'm like, no, it doesn't. We can hang out a little bit longer. I started breakout rooms with the kids that are in my show right now. So we just made a different breakout room for each scene. And I just let them wander and just go from room to room and just start practicing the scenes. And I'm hoping they begin to form a team, form a bit of a family, and start building this camaraderie. We have 8th graders and we have homeschoolers, we have 3rd graders, we have kids from different schools. Some of these kids don't know each other except in this little box. And yesterday we tried the breakout room, and I put the alert, okay, 60 seconds, we're wrapping up. And then when they came back, and even the older kids, which I said, I don't think they're having fun. They were having a great time. And can we let it go a little bit longer? That wasn't good for the brownies that I put in the oven to surprise my wife with, but that wasn't going so well. But that was the highlight of my week so far, was that the kids wanted more. You hear Zoom fatigue, you hear all that stuff, and they still were wanting more. The other thing would be there's been more parents, and that's something that I get because I'm not the most orthodox teacher. I'm kind of wild and crazy and free floaty and creativity, and all. And I could just see a parent being a little bit, what's up with this guy? Is he a magician or is he a teacher? And I'm like, yes,
both.
But this week I've seen siblings coming into music class with the student. I've seen grandparents, and I've seen parents, and I don't feel threatened about it. Excuse me. I don't feel threatened about it. It's something, hey, how are you? We get to know each other. It's a virtual campfire feeling. It's kind of cool. So the togetherness and people, even in this situation, wanting more, that's been the really awesome thing so far this week for me lately.
See, once you got that going, Pete, do you see what just happened? It just it was like a fountain.
I know.
That's cool.
Is my neck getting red?
No. Your mood neck
starting
is
to break
starting.
out?
I was like, don't look at the mood neck. Don't look at the mood neck.
But I completely agree with what you just said when you started. That was exactly what was kind of like occurring with me, and Joe, to your point, like it's this mashing of gears at first. You're like, I gotta unearth the positivity. I know it's in there somewhere. It's just buried right now.
Bravo.
Wow. It's a great exercise.
It's good.
Yeah. It's
so simple.
I wonder how I should start tallying, just like, what's going well for you? Good. Wait, no, what's going well?
How about you, Joseph? What's going well for you?
I think our well-being. So we use a program called WellCheck in my classroom, and I started using it with remote learning. And Jody Miller is on with you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been working with her a little bit, and actually, I don't remember who reached out to who first, but essentially, I tried to make a much more terrible version of WellCheck with a Microsoft form, and was like, okay, I'm getting all of the data. It's going into an Excel sheet that I've opened once this whole first semester because it's a mess.
Right.
I need something better. And she's like, we have that. And so I started using it while we were teaching remotely. And it was so cool because actually when we came back, the kids were like, are we still going to do our daily check-in? I'm like, yeah, get out your computers every morning and do your daily check-in. And this week I've had almost consistently all 10s except a 7s here and there. And like today, 12 out of 13 was 10s with a 7. I mean, my kids, we're back at school. We are just doing so well. And to be in a time like this and have my kids marking well, like their well-being at a score of a 10 at 9 o'clock in the morning is just, it's sweet. And, you know, I feel it. I play with them every day at recess. At both of their recesses, I go out and I play with them. And it's really cool. I have 13 kids in my class this year. I get 2 new kids starting this next week, but like, that's a teacher's dream, right? When have you heard of that in a public school in the largest school district in, you know, Kansas?
Wow.
So it's been an amazing year. It's so cool to be so close to these kids and all of them to be so close as well. I feel really happy at school in my classroom, and so that's going well.
I love that. So I have a question for you. I want to make sure we bring up your podcast, Cup of Joe. So what initiated you creating this podcast for educators?
So, sorry, I'm just laughing because so I was a guest on a couple podcasts for my Brain Awakes book, and I was on 3 podcasts, and 2 out of the 3 said, hey, you should just start your own podcast. Like, this was really fun. You know, I liked your energy on here. I think people would like to listen to you. And so on the second person that said it, I happened to have like maybe a 3-day weekend or something. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's, you know, what would I want to do it on? And I'm just laughing because this is kind of who I am. Like, my wife's like, let's shiplap our wall. And I'm like, let's do, like, next Thursday was Thanksgiving break. I'm like, Dad, I need your Yukon. Come on. Like, she comes home from work. We're like 1 board in, like, oh, it's happening. Right. So that's kind of who I am. Like, let's do it. But anyways, so while my wife was at work this day, I think it was a Friday that I had off. I put like, what would I want to do? I wrote out like my little intro that I thought would be fun. I posted it on my Instagram story and just was like, what do you think? Like, should I do this or should I not? I'm pretty sure I got like 1 yes, and not even like a bunch of no's, just like one person's like, yes. And I'm like, I'm doing it. And so I got on and I reached out to like maybe my top 12 people that I've been watching on Twitter, you know, people that I constantly see good things coming from, and who also have, you know, a sizable following so that I could get some footwork for my podcast. And 10 out of the 12 said yes within 24 hours. And at that point, like, no logo, no real name, no sound equipment, no script, like literally nothing. And so it was like, okay, like I went to a podcast that I'd been on and like took their kind of format and like tweaked it to make it for me and just eventually started rolling with it. And so now I think this week was episode 31 or 32 this week. And it's just been cool. I think, you know, you don't always want to record. You're certainly, you know, it is some work. It takes some time. It takes some money, but the connections that you make are just unreal. I mean, you know, people still just reach out and check on you, and the people that you connect with are always people that you look up to or that you want to speak with. And so to build those connections with people from all over is just, it's worth every hour I spend on it for sure.
That's a neat story. Yeah. So we're all swimming in it right now. So it's great. It's a great space to be in though, right? I mean, because we're doing that job that's serving our peers or our community. And I don't think there's anything more noble than that right now. I think considering the tone and temperament of the world and the pressure and the challenges that we're all facing as teachers, for those like yourself who are stepping forward to help each other out, it's an important task. It's a really important task.
And it's so good for you to be able to listen to your voice, say, hey, there's a spark. There's something there. There's a nugget of an idea. I don't have the nuts and bolts. I don't have the tools yet. I'm dealing with that with a huge project right now. I don't know how the heck I'm going to do this thing, but I've already told a lot of people we're doing this thing. I totally admire that. That is excellent. And that will rub off on your students. That attitude. That's awesome.
So we want to be mindful of your time, Joseph. And at the end of our show, what we typically do is kind of just some kind of takeaway, something that each of us kind of, that spark that I guess Pete was just talking about, something that kind of ignited some idea or something that you feel like is a little piece of knowledge or something that we wish to try. And so we'll go first, if that's okay. And we'll let you kind of wrap it up. So Fred, I'm going to call on you first. Do you want to share your
Sure. I'll go
little takeaway?
I really enjoyed hearing everything Joe had to say. And we've, I've learned a lot. I think that the takeaways, I'm going to probably steal the exercise aspect. And that's that very intentional question. I knew Pete's shaking his head. I'm like, you took mine, but asking people what's going well for them. But the other one too, I think that really kind of resonated with me this evening was the awareness of breath. And I began practicing meditation. I started with the Headspace app, and I found that was really interesting. And kind of like you, I wasn't given a book though, Joe. I ended up listening to the interview with I guess he's the founder or the creator of the Headspace app, and he became a monk. And I apologize for not knowing his name or his whole background, but that kind of put me down this path to looking into other practices. So I have a military background. I'm a former Marine, and I've learned that the Navy SEALs practice a very important breathing technique. I believe it's called the square technique, where you breathe in, you pause, you breathe out, pause, breathe back in. And you could see, and I've noticed this now in some of my friends who actually do practice that. You could see that when they're in a very tense conversation or a meeting, they pause themselves, and I could literally see them doing it. But that awareness of breath doesn't take any extra tools or training or schooling. It's part of us. And I think I love the simplicity of that reminder, that just do that. And that's the first step down a very mindful, helpful road.
Great, Pete.
Yeah. So, as somebody who was a pretty severe, pretty severe stutterer growing up, and somebody who has dealt with anxiety and depression all my life, I cannot underestimate. You cannot underestimate the importance of breathing, and a lot of what Fred just talked about. I practice regularly. Also, here in our home with my son, we do at the end of every day. He goes to the same school. He goes to my school. We have quite a commute on the way home. We'll do, what was your high? What was your low? And we do that with each other on the way home. What was your best part of the day? What was not the best part of the day? And then we talk about it. It gets us through the commute. And I'm so looking forward to adding the what's going well for you. I love it. That's going to be great. I can't wait to do that with my colleagues and my teachers. With my son, I might do it like The Rock, the wrestler, when he would say, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? And then he's like, it doesn't matter what The Rock is cooking. I might add that. I might say, so what's going well for you? When he starts talking, I might just turn around and, it doesn't matter what's going well for you. But anyway, I think the world of you. Thank you so much for coming on. Keep up doing this great stuff, buddy.
Thank you.
I think for me, I've got two. One is
it doesn't matter what's going well for you.
I was waiting for it.
Oh, that was perfect.
I'm sorry.
Oh, brother. I feel like I've just adopted another Fred or Pete.
Oh, that was great.
It was right on cue.
Perfect.
So I was going to say the just being part. Right. We as educators forget that. And so it's one thing to teach our students about to just be, but also to also remind ourselves. And then the other thing, a lot of the things, Joseph, that you talk about, I feel like are very visual, of us kind of visualizing either what we want or the space that we want to be in, or the energy we're giving out. So I wrote down that I need to water my happy seeds. Try to think about when I'm kind of in a bad mood or grumpy, or a lot of, ugliness is coming out of me, that I make sure I stop for a minute and remember to water my happy seeds.
It is a choice.
Yeah. How about you, Joseph? Do you have something you want to just make sure that we walk away with, a little nugget or takeaway maybe from our conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if it's okay, I'd love to just share one of my favorite activities, and certainly one of my kids. It's oftentimes, and again, with you saying visual, it's one of the most visual breathing techniques I do with my kids. And so I can see when they're doing it, but also just when we came back from this last, I think it was Thanksgiving break. And I asked my kids if any of them had practiced any mindfulness or yoga while they were at home. And one girl said, this is the activity that she did. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to kind of just walk through this activity, and those listening, maybe this is one that they could do with their kids sometime this week.
Great.
All right. So this one is called 5 Fingers, 5 Breaths. And essentially, all you need to do is hold out your hand like the number 5. So spread your fingers apart. And with your opposite hand, I always have my kids trace their hand first without breathing, just kind of going up and down motion, up and over each finger, starting with their pinky over to their thumb. And then I let them know that we're going to be doing that again, but to the pace of our breath. So at the bottom of our pinky, when we breathe in through our nose, we're going to go up to the top of our pinky. And when we breathe out, we'll go down to the ridge. And when we breathe in, we'll go up our ring finger and out. And then once I feel that they kind of understand that, we'll begin. So we say in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And usually it's quite funny. One, like that's 5 breaths, but to me is already powerful. Like I felt like that slowed me down in this moment tremendously. 2 is the kids that love to race, right? Like they realize like, whoa, that's not that doesn't feel right. And so they kind of slow down and try to really get it timed right. But then it's also adds that tactile component of being more intentional about following your breath, because you're almost mapping it, like the waves of your breath, the rhythm of your breathing, you're almost mapping it with your finger. And so I've noticed that kids kind of gravitate towards this one when they're being intentional about their breathing, because it's a guaranteed 5. They can map their breathing and just has some movement with it. But that's always one of the top ones for me and my kiddos to do. So I guess more than anything, I hope that teachers take the time to do activities like that for themselves, and then eventually spark that within their kids. I mean, I guess coming off of this, not to bring up the event at the Capitol, but lots of teachers were kind of panicked about that with their kids. And I just kind of shared with my community that I felt comfort knowing that I've been working with my kids every day this year, and I feel confident that they can handle a big event like this. I feel confident that they have spoke about big emotions like this before, and as recent, as intense, or some kids hardly knew anything about it, but I felt confident knowing that they would not be hyperventilating in their bed that night. I felt confident that they could come to school and use words to express their feelings and to find ways to have that be an outlet. And that's only because I practiced it every single day with my kids. And so just a reminder that you never know when you're going to truly need that strength, that understanding. And so if you start today, you are watering those seeds that might save a life someday too.
Yeah, that's powerful, right? We're, as educators, we think of learning tools, and you're providing us opportunities to give the essential learning tools, I feel like, to our students for the rest of their life. So Joseph, if someone wanted to buy Brain Awakes, where can they find this book?
Yeah, so brainawakes.com, simple as that. You can find Brain Awakes. You can find a little bit more about Haley and I. On brainawakes.com, there's also the tab for the Cup of Joe podcast. I've recently started blogging. I think I've only done 3 posts. My first one was the biggest hit, Why You Should Teach with Pants On. It's a great one, especially for all the remote learners. You need to go read that. And it's always short reads too. I don't want to, we're educators. Who has time for that? But so anyways, brainawakes.com is a great place to find the book and other things that I'm trying to create and put out there for educators. And then on Twitter, I'm always happy to connect. It's at Mr. Joseph Hamer. And it would be an honor to hear some of your voices and hopefully hear your thoughts. If you're able to give this a shot in your classroom, let me know what went well or how terribly it failed. Both are great learning tools for us.
That's great. We're only stronger, I feel like, as we grow our community and continue to really build that inner circle. We can't be doing this by ourselves. We just can't. Hey, Pete, where can people find us?
Yeah, we love getting feedback, hearing from, connecting with our fellow educators, everybody out there. Please find us on our Facebook page, YouTube now, and also at teacherpeprally.com. And in fact, if you like what you hear, especially tonight, if you like what you hear, please leave us a review. That would be such a great big help. It really helps us reach more educators and keeping pep in our cup.
Perfect.
That's great. And then Joseph, we really appreciate your time. This has really been a pleasure. If you wouldn't mind forwarding the blog about teaching with your pants on to Fred, we would
Yes,
we would appreciate that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I have my pants on today. They're not pants, but they're on my legs. I mean, it's covered.
Exactly.
I may look appropriate up top. I'm having a party down bottom.
That's it. That's entirely what the article's about, which is why I refer to pants as jeans or nicer. So I will be forwarding.
Thank you for emphasizing that.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, cool. We really do appreciate your time. This really was great. And hopefully we'll bring you back on again. I just, again, think that this is just a message we want to continue to share, and every platform is, even better. Do you mind if we take a quick picture? Pete just takes like a screenshot of us so that tomorrow on social media, we'll kind of tease and advertise, guess who our next guest is for next week.
Yes, absolutely.
Fred.
Pete, let us know when you're ready. Fred, look up.
Are
you ready?
I'm having some trouble tonight.
Okay, good. Just let us know.
Good. We're good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Yes,
yeah,
I held in my last "it doesn't matter" when you said, "Could you tell where they could find us?" It doesn't matter.
You should have let it go.
My kids are going to hate this because I got to bring it in.
You know what, Joe? That the planting of the seed, that has roots in, and I cannot remember is it The Secret or is it The One Thing? Have you ever heard that story?
Yes.
Pete,
it's ringing a bell. Yeah.
Jesse introduced it to us a while ago.
Right.
But the whole story is wrapped around the notion that you take a seed of corn and you plant it in the ground, right? So the seed is the idea planted in the brain. And that seed, and then you could also take a seed that grows a weed or a poisonous plant. And that could also be planted in the same ground that you're planting the corn in. If you fertilize both, they will both grow. And then what I guess the notion is, you have to when you plant that seed in a young person's brain or anybody's brain, you have to fertilize it with positivity because it'll grow. If you fertilize it with negativity, it will grow. And that's where I kind of share that same story to that degree with my students. But I thought it was in the story of Acres of Diamonds. That's another one. So there's Acres of Diamonds. If you've never read that, read that story. And then the other one is, I think it's I can't remember the name of it now, Pete. Right. But it's a story about the secret, and he weaves in these tales about what is the secret. And it comes from a reading from a marketing guru in the 1940s. It was like on an LP. And then over the years, it kind of grew legs onto digital. It has really old lineage to it. So it's real. I think you might find it really interesting. If I could find it, I will message it to you.
Yes, send it, please. Yeah, I do think it's interesting too. There's one girl in particular that I'm thinking about that's just like seriously the most shining girl in my class, like the biggest burst of sunshine, cutest smile, always like. So I have 2 Daisies in my classroom, and she is the one with the most energy. So lately we've been calling her Crazy Daisy. That's what she's like. I'm Crazy Daisy, like just so funny. But her household that she comes from, like I heard the F-bomb drop so many times while we were in remote. She like constantly would go give her little baby sister her bottle and like, is it okay if I just read to my baby sister for a little bit? Like all 5 kids are on one bed, all with their headphones, remote learning at the same time. Like just, I know, like I went and dropped off some things to her house. Like every corner around her house is tagged. Like everything is, wow. But like, yeah, and like, even when I like brag on her to her family, they're like, oh, well, why aren't we seeing that at home? You know, like, I don't know. And yeah, every day she shows up, like, I think I don't know, like I don't know how she weeds her garden, but I swear there's not any negative. Like she has never been negative once. Yet I know there's so much that could potentially hold her down. And so it's kind of interesting. I don't know, when you were talking about that, she popped into my mind and I thought, what's making hers like grow so strong in an environment that might tarnish so many others.
Well, you're a part of that.
Yeah, you are. You're the one. Yeah.
Little piece.
You know, it's somebody just said this to me again the other day, and so yeah, we have COVID. We're on the edge of it now, so thank goodness. But I got a call from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. They do these check-ins and they're doing data collection and all this stuff. And that was the one thing we got into this conversation. As you all know, I could talk to anybody. I could talk to my cup here for 15 minutes, have a great conversation. But he brought in the notion or the aspect of the PTSD that's going to occur after this. And hearing you say that, I kind of wonder what these kids are going to be like that are fully remote for such an extended period of time in this immersed in these homes that are dysfunctional, as opposed to getting that release where they can get to go to a school for 6 hours. And then, and it kind of reminds me of, it's kind of like the inverse of this, an old colonel that I used to work with when because I have 3 children. And he used to say this one story. He says, Fred, you got to look at your daughters like this. He said, they're like clear glasses of water when they're in your house. But when they go out in the world, it's like somebody takes a dropper of ink and they drop in a drop of ink and it gets darker and darker and darker all through the day because they're getting all this negative influence. And then your job, he goes, is to purify the water again when they come back home and try to kind of cleanse it out. And I kind of feel like that the inverse of that is happening, right, in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think there'll be a huge gap too, right? Like the kids that are in a toxic home compared to the kids that have their own corner set up at their house or getting snacks. Their parents are helping them when they need it, not over helping them. That there's going to be a huge gap between kids who have been, in a situation that, we were just kind of describing before that to kids that have been in a better situation. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I have 2 new kids coming on Monday from remote. Monday is technically our semester break. And so I have 2 kids from remote that have elected to come back to school. And so it'll be interesting to reteach, our whole class procedures so that they can learn them, but also to see what that's going to be like.
Right.
My class is so excited though. Every Thursday we do Thankful Thursday. Everyone either writes down or shares something that they're thankful for. And today, all of the half the class is like, I'm thankful for the new students. Like,
That's funny.
I'm like, and that was what I'm like, I'm thankful that you guys are going to welcome them with like so warmly. They're going to be nervous. Think about how you guys felt, but I know you guys are going to be awesome. But everyone's like, I'm just thankful for the new students. I'm like, they're not going to change like a whole lot. Like, it's just going to be two more. Like, I want to be like, they're not going to. Oh, well, me too.
I totally forgot about that though. As a kid, I can remember that, when
when
the new
student
came, like, I'm trying to think of, was it the feeling that the hopefulness of making a new friend? Is that what it is? You think?
A girl said that. I can't wait to make a new friend today.
Awesome.
That was something that she said on her Thankful Thursday.
I totally forgot about that. That's
and
so
when you
cool.
That's got to fill your cup a little bit, because I know that would do the same for us. I mean, it just hearing it makes me feel good.
Well, and it's a big thing. So like at recess, we can't, it's not like all the second and third graders can be how they used to be. We're in zones. And so, they really do have to take in these two kids, like pull them in under their wing and kind of show them the ropes, because they haven't played on this zone playground ever in their life. They've always got to do whatever. And so just hearing the kids so excited, it was cool. Like I said, it's totally different having 13 kids. And up until this point, because one of them's a third grader, I've only had 4 third graders and 9 second graders. So that means every single day this whole year during core third grade math time, I've been teaching core instruction to 4 kids. Like, talk about, like, most small groups don't even have 4 kids anymore, let alone like every day's core instruction. I'm sitting and just like, I only have to focus on you 4. And so it's been cool, like that sense of things too.
Wow.
I know that you're excited probably too, just to have some new energy, right? That's kind of reminiscent of what part of this job is, right? You never know what you're going to get and what the new day is going to be, and kind of keeps you going.
And I just one last thing too, and I know we have to be mindful of this time, but Joe, I had a chance to listen to the one podcast out with the Inspiration for Creativity.
Right.
With Tim Needles.
Yes. And I'm going to revisit that, because that was also part of my talk tonight, because with critical thinking there's an element of creativity. And how do you spark that? And even in software, because I teach software development, technically that's my main gig. But that's such an important thing. And I love hearing different people's angles on how to stoke that fire. Because I'm trying to weave that into all the stuff I do with getmecoding.com to inspire kids and to have them explore and tinker with coding. And I'm trying to marry up. It's almost that STEAM approach, not STEM, bringing the arts in with the tech side. I'm the more I have to deal with Pete and his harassment and but my daughter's in the arts. She's studying theater, and I keep on seeing like all these different ways to unlock those creative energies, and everything you're talking about tonight is part of that. You got my wheels flying all over the place.
Good.
This is how my Thursdays are constantly on these interviews. It's like I keep on
it's
learning.
hard to go to sleep on Thursday nights because my brain is usually just.
That's the truth. It's so fun hearing about so many great teachers doing so much great work.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And same to you guys too. You putting in Thursday hours afterwards and connecting with people, and the name of your show really does say it all. I feel energized. I don't have school tomorrow. It's our grades day. I've never had to actually go in before. Like, I've always had my grades done, and this is the first Friday ever. So like in our district, if you have your grades done, you don't have to go in on that day. My whole career, I've never had to go in.
Oh boy.
I feel, but I have a lot going well for me. Something that's going well for me.
That's good.
It doesn't matter.
You're right.
Well, good luck with that tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, when is this? When do you anticipate this being released so I can help promote it as well?
I think this will be probably our Monday one. We always upload it on Sunday night, but then Monday's where we'll start pushing it out.
Perfect. And will you send over any files that I can share?
Of course.
Sure.
Happy to.
Sweet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
know
all of my listeners, it would obviously be right up your alley. So hopefully it can, if there's any
hopefully.
gaps there, they'll be able
Yeah,
to find you.
Great.
Since you're a podcaster, Joe, too, and I didn't tell Aaron and Pete about this. I popped into a Clubhouse room last night on the app, and it was hosted by Pat
With
Flynn
or
and-
without pants?
Without. So, but it was funny though. Like
I regret that.
it was like, yeah, right. I know, and it is being recorded.
Yeah, it's okay. We
So,
will.
but the group was all podcasters, and these are the people at that big level. But they mentioned something that I think we should think about, at least to try. But Joe, you want to think about grabbing snippets, grabbing audio snippets, and using them as posts.
Yeah, remember I was talking about that?
I've heard about that.
Yeah, Outcast. It's really, really easy to do.
Oh, is that what you meant by that? Oh,
Yeah.
I think it sounds like, I love that idea. I think it's such a great.
It's like when you see the little sound file on the post.
Yes.
Well, so that too, I was under the impression that you were talking about taking like something like this, taking a whole snippet of it and making it like a blog post. Or are you talking about just a little
Both
typed up thing?
Both. Like, so yeah, you could, there was two techniques that they talked about. They did talk about the grabbing like a fragment of a conversation and saying, hey, if you want to listen to the rest of this, check out the podcast. You know,
like the audio, the literal audio.
The audio, yeah. But then there was another thing that the one guy brought up, and that was, it's kind of like not reverse engineering, but essentially taking the conversation, examining a portion of a conversation, because we talked on a number of concept topics tonight, even like meditation. You could just do a blog post just on meditation,
right?
And then you could do a blog post on this or another blog, but all of them have roots that go back into the blog or the podcast, where you get the continuity of the conversation,
right? And it's about not having to reinvent the wheel every time you want to create content. Is having a starting place or just having some there. Something that I use for the audio is Headliner, and you have like 10 free videos a month, which unless you're doing more than 10 episodes a month, that's all you need. But you can upload like, so if I, on my little snippets, like if I take a 20 or 30 second, 40, you can do a whole episode, but whatever, a little snippet, you can upload the audio to Headliner and then create your background or put your guys' logo on it or whatever. And there's actually, it'll, what's it called? Speech to text for you if you want, or just the sound wave and things like that. But it's free and it's mostly accurate. You do have to kind of watch the text and go in and type and fix it sometimes. But that's another thing that works well.
That's cool.
Oh,
Good
that's
tip.
great. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's free, which is good.
Yes.
Always.
We're always looking for free.
I think podcasting should be free for teachers.
Oh,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And hosting services.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like I record. You guys use Zoom, right? So that's at least free. I use Squadcast.
we lost
Really
him.
first.
That is not an advertisement.